Brahmanda Bhante Kona Bhagavan Ji Guru Krishna Prasadi Pai bhakti-yoga. So I was thinking how Srila Prabhupada is eternally present in Vrindavan, and he is spreading Vrindavan, the glories of Krishna, all over the universe. And therefore, Brahmanda Brahmite Om Bhagavan, the fortunate soul can come in touch with the pure devotee. But coming in touch is not enough. We have to understand what is a pure devotee from the pure devotee himself. And I'm very happy to hear many of my god brothers and god sisters in the recent days emphasizing the need for all of us to hear from Srila Prabhupada. And this need is confirmed by the fact that Krishna has provided the means for us to hear from Srila Prabhupada. Especially now, these little contraptions are available at matchless gifts that contain all of Srila Prabhupada's lectures and bhajans. And this isn't by any means idle talk. If we don't hear from Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhupada said many a time that if we don't read his books, we won't be able to stay in his movement. We don't read all of his books, we won't be able to stay in his movement. So to actually be in Prabhupada's, this is not a good night. To actually be in Prabhupada's movement and move with him, this purification from hearing from Srila Prabhupada. So the first time I ever had darshan with Srila Prabhupada was very important for me, because from that moment till now, the impact that Prabhupada had on my covered soul was so strong that it actually cut all my ties with the material world, because Prabhupada emanated the spiritual world, and it was all attractive. It was Krishna. Prabhupada emanates Krishna. Therefore, he's called Sakshat Hari, because he has the pleasure spreading potency that Krishna has. He has the knowledge that Krishna has. Beauty, there's no one more beautiful than Srila Prabhupada. All of his gestures and his very presence emanated all of the opulences of Krishna. So to have the opportunity to come in touch with the personality like Srila Prabhupada is not an ordinary thing. It's extraordinary. And in order to take advantage of that contact, we have to develop an extraordinary desire and drive. We need to be driven by the desire to hear from and beg to understand from Srila Prabhupada and serve Srila Prabhupada. It's not enough. It's not enough for us to simply come together for all of the programs and have so many wonderful programs. We have to deepen. We need to deepen our understanding and our ability to hear and pray to Prabhupada that we can. What we hear becomes Vijnana, so that we can all behave in such a way that the whole planet can be delivered, which is, or at least effective. Not, Prabhupada said that not everyone will join, but at least everyone can feel the beneficial effect of Krishna consciousness. We were going to talk a little bit about Prabhupada's last days. In September 77, or August, September 77, just before Janmashtami, myself and a friend, we were going to come to Vrindavan because we'd heard that Srila Prabhupada was talking about leaving the planet. So we wanted to come and be with him. But then all of a sudden we heard that Srila Prabhupada's coming to England. So we were very, very happy. And I remember the day he arrived at the airport. He had come from Vrindavan, from this very place where his servants, and one of them who was with him at the time, right? Is right here. So from 77 to 2019, that's 42 years.
I can't count.
So Arundati traveled with Srila Prabhupada and her husband Vrindavan, Jamal Krishna Maharaj, Upendra, Prabhupada's personal servant, Guru Kripa Maharaj, who many of you know, and Abhiram and Shruti and his wife. So that was seven people traveling from at that time to England, and his plan was to go on to America. But there's a few things I know that would happen at that time. Well, when he arrived, the day he arrived, it was a very wet, rainy day. And Prabhupada, the way we see all these beautiful pictures of Srila Prabhupada, well, he wasn't looking like that when he came that last time. He was very gaunt, and he was in a wheelchair, and he was very, very gaunt, practically skin and bones, and he was wearing sunglasses because his eyes were affected by light, and he was wearing a blue sapphire ring on his swollen fingers that Guru Kripa Maharaj had got for him because an astrologer had said that might help. So Prabhupada was in a very passive mood at that time, and we'd never seen him like that. We'd always seen him, full of energy and active, directing the show. So anyhow, we were all very shocked, and we offered our obeisances, and we published a blame, and he drove back to his Bhagavad-Gita. And a few of the things that happened at that time that I remember, one was that Abhiman Prabhu, they would, the devotees from upstairs, because Prabhupada's rooms were upstairs and the temple room was downstairs. So one devotee had made a palanquin to carry Srila Prabhupada, just like he has a palanquin here, a very nice palanquin. And Prabhupada was carried down every day into the temple room, and he was brought in front of Radha Gokulananda for darshan. And then the palanquin with Prabhupada was placed just in front of his Vyasa-san. So he sat on his palanquin, not on his Vyasa-san. And then we would have Guru Puja. And Aditi, you were there at the time. Could you say something?
It's fine. Continue. Just go ahead and I'll add that just a little bit later.
Okay. So devotees had come from everywhere, in Europe and all of the yatras in London, in England. And although on one Prabhupada memory, one devotee called Arundati Mataji says that Prabhupada gave a lecture. Actually, Prabhupada never spoke at that time. He never spoke. He just sat on his palanquin. And the devotees, we would have Guru Puja, and if Prabhupada as much as lifted his hand or turned his head, the devotees would just start jumping. We would just like hitting the ceiling. And there was a tremendous exchange of love between Srila Prabhupada and the devotees. Now, Prabhupada obviously knew that this would be his last time there. So he was just pouring out mercy. I don't know how many devotees realized that would be Prabhupada's last time in England, but another, my friend and I, Gandhavai, and myself, we would drive to Bhakti-yoga early in the morning. There was one lady who had a garden full of roses, beautiful roses. In those days, we didn't have any compunction about nipping flowers for Srila Prabhupada or for Krishna. So we would, she would park the van just near the garden, and I would go out there with a pair of scissors and a big black bag and nip as many roses as I could before I started to do the thing. And then we would go to Bhakti-yoga, and I'd sit in front of Prabhupada and make a petal garland, because Prabhupada was so weak. The petal garland is nice and light. And we'd also make a little bouquet of roses, and at the appropriate time, hand both of them to Lord Krishna Maharaj, and he would garland Srila Prabhupada with the roses in his hand. And Prabhupada actually would lift his hand up and smell the rose and rose bouquet and then put it down. And so that was Prabhupada in the temple room. The reports would come, and I remember a couple of them. Should I go on?
Oh, I don't know how long we're supposed to go on until we all need to speak.
Right.
So you want to finish your thought?
Okay. So there were two or three things. One was that again, Prabhupada was very weak. So one day he was in his in the he was walking in his robes, and he collapsed. And Abhiram caught him and brought him back to his bed. And then Abhiram told Srila Prabhupada, he'd actually collapsed. And Prabhupada said, no, I didn't. And Abhiram couldn't say that. And Prabhupada did. Prabhupada said, no, I didn't. So Prabhupada's spirit that, whatever we were perceiving externally, internally Srila Prabhupada was as strong and determined as ever. Never say die. He just didn't want to accept it. Because, who knows? Prabhupada may have fainted in ecstasy. We don't know. But Prabhupada didn't collapse. And then another thing which we take, but I can't find the tape, might be somewhere, was that Prabhupada was very upset with the Indian government at that time. And as a matter of fact, he was crying. He said, I've given so much of my energy to establish this movement in India, and all they can do is criticize me. They were criticizing Srila Prabhupada because agricultural land had been used to put up a prasadam hall to distribute prasadam to hundreds of thousands of local people. The Prabhupada was actually crying. He said this government is the most gospel government. And he was very, very, very upset with here he was with his devotees trying to benefit everyone in their life of Krishna.
Namo Sampradaya Krishna Krishna Pujaya Srimati Bhakti-yoga Swami. I want to change the mood a little bit and come back to Vrindavan in 1973. I had just come from France to help Yamuna with the spring festival that would take place here after Mayapur. So I went to Mayapur and we saw Prabhupada a little bit there, but many of us women, we were out in the fields cutting vegetables during class. We weren't very, it wasn't very nice actually, but we didn't get to see Prabhupada so much, but that was kind of the mood in the early days. And at that time there was just part of the yellow belt, the temple building that is now there. We women stayed in the bottom part that was not actually walled, just part of the walls there. But then afterwards, we all took the trains to come to the Vrindavan Gorpurni Festival in 1973. And so Yamuna was going to be the cook for all the devotees, and everybody stayed at Fogal Ashram. Anybody remember Fogal Ashram here? You do. And across the street, there was an open-air mandir. It was the Sitaram devotees. And they chanted Sitaram 24 hours a day, and very enthusiastically. And even many of us devotees would go around, Sitaram, Sitaram. You just couldn't help it, it was so catchy. So anyway, I remember Madhura and I, we helped Yamuna, and Yamuna made fabulous prasadam. The devotees cooked prasadam on top of the Fogal Ashram roof. And then after the week finished, many devotees left. And then what there was here was Prabhupada's house, without this room, without the gardens. There were 4 shacks and a kitchen, an open-air kitchen. Did anybody come at that time?
Yeah, you did.
Okay. Anyway, Anand, Prabhupada's godbrother, was our cook. And at that time, well,
I came like
Yamuna and myself and Nadira, we stayed in the top room that Prabhupada had at Radha Damodar. There was another room up there. And I don't know if Prabhupada ever stayed there. But anyway, Yamuna was staying there. We would sleep on the roof. And we would hear the Mongol Arti for Radha Damodar. There would be a pujari and somebody who would hit a gong and just make a lot of noise. Anyway, Prabhupada was here, and then in the evenings, after the festival slowed down, we would come here to Prabhupada's room, and he would give darshan in the evening. So one night, he said to Yamuna, I want you to come here and live. And I thought he said at the ranch. I don't remember, and she said, well, Prabhupada, where will we live? And he said, you'll live in my house. And we thought, where, you know? And then Prabhupada laughed. He was so amused. He said, I am Balaram, and I'm dragging Yamuna. And he really enjoyed that pastime. So anyway, that's what happened. And there's something in the Leela, I love the Leela-mrita, but there's one point they have completely wrong. And that's that the deities weren't here. Yamuna, the deities were here, and
Who's the artist? Rukmini's husband? Bharadwaj.
oh yeah, Bharadwaj was actually painting the deities. In fact, he very significantly changed Balaram. And so Balaram and Krishna were here, Radha and Krishna were here. This was spring of 1973. I'm sorry, 1974. And the temple was supposed to open in 6 months in August. So anyway, in the Leela-mrita, it says that the deities were here, that they were here long before. But the problem was that the construction wasn't happening. And it was very difficult to get cement. You had to have permits. You could only get so much at a time. So the construction wasn't happening as fast as everybody wanted it to happen. And then, so then we started living here in Prabhupada's, what we call the kitchen, which is now where that bed is, and the beauty of Prabhupada is walking out. That was his kitchen and his bathroom. And then at some point, Prabhupada left, and he assumed that everything would go on, and in August, 6 months later, the temple would open. And I think we were about 6 devotees here. Sarabi, who was in charge of the construction, his assistant, Vinarnava, Banmalini and Pranav, and myself. And Yamuna and Gurudas were here sometimes they were, what they call it, out of station, I think was the word, meaning they'd be going, giving things for deities or whatever. And there was no GBC in India. Tamal Krishna had resigned his GBC. So Prabhupada had the responsibility of being not only spiritual master of the whole world, but GBC of India. So different people were suggested. Karandar was suggested, and Karandar came from Los Angeles, and I was in the house here, and he kind of walked around in the days. I could see he thought, how can I be GBC? I don't understand the situation. So he left, and then next was Jagadish Maharaj. I think he was Maharaj. No, maybe he wasn't Maharaj yet, but he also couldn't take the responsibility. Then devotees started to arrive around June. I remember there was one, Nalini Kanta, and he kept saying, there's no way this temple can open in August. And in our heads, we thought, there's no way it can't open. We have to open. So anyway, August, more devotees are coming from everywhere. And Prabhupada comes and we go for a walk around the property. And he says, can we open this temple? And nobody says anything. And then the Lingitanta says, no, Prabhupada. And Prabhupada says, you're right. We can't open. It's not ready. So the Prabhupada was very unhappy. And it became a very difficult time. Many things happened. And Prabhupada became ill. And myself, I ended up being, and Bhagavan came and Prabhupada put him in charge of India. And I ended up going to Delhi and being Pujari there. And eventually the temple opened and everything was okay. But it was a very tough period when things didn't get done. I remember one time Prabhupada was giving darshan in this room, and because I cleaned his house and I knew every fan and every corner, there was a fan that was very loud and we couldn't hear Prabhupada. So I got up and I went to the fan and I turned it down, and Prabhupada kind of looked at me, and then he realized I was turning the fan down on our side so we could hear, but I was letting the fan stay on him so that he could be cool. And then often he would turn to Swarup Damodar and he would ask him to chant the Jai Radha Madhava prayers. That was always very sweet.
Was that when, I remember being here once when the Prabhupada's rooms were not complete, the walls were still like grey cement, having kirtan in that situation, not painted or anything like that.
Yeah, it was kind of undone, but Prabhupada actually loved his house here. He very much was pleased by having his house, you know. The other thing to mention is another time before the August when Prabhupada came to open the temple, he came on May 19th. And actually it was Yamuna's birthday and she was in ecstasy. And we waited all day for Prabhupada to come, and then it got dark. And in those days, there was not a car passing by. I was looking out the windows, waiting to see car lights. And Yamuna and Madhura started a very ecstatic kirtan. Their eyes are closed. And all at once I see lights coming. And it turns down this way. I know it's Prabhupada. I'm trying to tell them Prabhupada's going to be here, but their eyes are closed. And the next thing I know, Prabhupada's right there in the door. He's walking through with a huge smile on his face. And he just said, continue kirtan, you know. And Brahmananda Swami was with them, and that room that was Brahmananda Swami's office right here, the entry where you enter there. And that was a very short visit, but that was very sweet with Prabhupada. And then I'll switch to the last time in England, and I'll just give a few minutes. But I was in France at that time, and Bhagavan told us nobody can go to England. Nobody can go see Prabhupada. He's ill, we can't bother him. Of course, all the German devotees went. And my husband and I, we were in Western France. We finished all our books, we finished all our records. It was a Saturday afternoon. My husband said, we're going to England. We're going to go see Prabhupada. And I said, I was a little scared because it was kind of being independent, but I was so happy to be able to see Prabhupada. So we took the boat over, we arrived Saturday evening, and they told us, oh, Prabhupada hasn't come down for 5 days. He had had an operation. And I thought, oh, it's because we've acted independently. Even we come all the way, we won't be able to see Prabhupada. So we sleep, and in the morning it's Mangalarti. And I was saying my Gayatri after Mangalarti, and there was a picture in the women's Prashadam room, and Prabhupada, right kind of below his room. I was praying. I just had to see Prabhupada. It was like my life depended on seeing Prabhupada. And when I finished my Gayatri, I could hear this sound. It meant something. It meant there was a buzz that this morning Prabhupada had said he would come down after the class. So as Anna was, he was in the palanquin, and that morning they asked me if I would make a garland for Prabhupada, and all during the class I was swinging those petals, one petal at a time. And Prabhupada wore that garland, and it was just beautiful. I mean, it was heartbreaking to see Prabhupada in that condition. At the same time, it just satisfied my heart and my soul completely. And Prabhupada was like this almost the whole time, with tears in his eyes. And we were like this with tears in our eyes. It was very moving. And then he went up backwards, he went up the stairs and turned, and that was the last time I saw Prabhupada in his spirit, in his physical body. But I'm very thankful. And as I was going, somebody said, "Oh, Aditi, would you like to wash Prabhupada's clothes?" And we had to get back to France, and I said, "I would love to." I went to the bucket and I picked up the clothes, and I smelled that wonderful smell of sandalwood, and we had to go back to France and do our service. But it was a real blessing to see Prabhupada.
Really, one of the things also, when say it.
When Vrindavan was leaving Kirtan, the Kirtan would become so wild. And I remember that amazing feeling of everyone just loving each other. Was the whole atmosphere was so permeated with love. That even if the devotees were from different natras, or they did some animosity just before you entered the temple room, as soon as you entered the temple room where Srila Prabhupada was, everything was forgotten, and the whole that Vrindavan mood just took over everyone's heart. That was very notable because there's anyway, I noticed that very vividly. Prabhupada Prema Bhakti influenced all of us, and like as Aditi said, Prabhupada there was tears coming from Prabhupada's eyes, and the devotees were crying as well. It was just an amazing time. I wish we could remember it again and again.
Namo Shivaya Krishna Vistaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swami Nityananda Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Srinyavari Prasthurja Deshatharine. So I didn't really know what I was going to speak about today, but Ananda and Aditi mentioned a few things they were going to say, so that brought a few things into my mind. And Ananda was talking about London and what happened there, what she just told you. And I had been traveling with Srila Prabhupada, I don't know, over a year at that point. And Prajuna, who was Prabhupada's Sanskrit editor, was with Prabhupada since around 1971. So I had gotten invited into the entourage to transcribe Srila Prabhupada's tapes. So that's what I was mainly doing when I was traveling with Prabhupada, because in 1976, he'd been translating for so many years already, but in 1976, he decided that he really wanted to totally translate as much as possible. He wanted to really get a lot done. So he wanted to have one particular person to do the transcribing, because previously, wherever he went, different people would do some transcribing here and there, and somebody would do it in Paris, someone would do it in London. So anyhow, I got invited to do it full time wherever we went, basically. So that's how I ended up on his entourage. And so when we were, I'm just going to try to kind of tie up your talk about London and yours about Vrindavan. that when Srila Prabhupada got so sick, he hadn't been planning on traveling around the world again, because he had been very, very sick in Vrindavan. And at first he was giving up, but then he said that he wanted to die preaching. So he left Vrindavan and went back to the UK, and he was going to go on. But then he got so ill suddenly, in London, and it was pretty shocking to everybody that was there. So at that time, Srila Prabhupada decided that he wasn't going to continue traveling and that he wanted to go back to India and get ready to leave his body. So first he was going to go back to Mumbai, and then he was going to go to Vrindavan. So at that time he said to me that me and Pradyumna shouldn't travel with him anymore because he was too ill to translate. So on a personal level, that was like totally, oh my God, we're not going to be traveling with Srila Prabhupada anymore. And oh my God, Srila Prabhupada might be leaving his body at any time, and we're not going to be there with him. It was a big thing. I mean, to me, in my mind and heart, it was like a major thing that we weren't continuing on with him. So anyhow, Srila Prabhupada, he went to Mumbai, and within a few weeks, we got a call from one of his servants. Me and Pradyumna, we stayed in London, and we got a call a few weeks later that said that Srila Prabhupada was feeling better and that he was starting to translate again, and that he wanted us to come and be back there with him so that we could do the particular services that we did. So that was a great relief on all levels, but especially the main one being that Srila Prabhupada it looked like he wasn't leaving his body, and that he was going to continue on for some time, and so there was a lot of hope and joy too at that time. So so then kind of back here in Vrindavan, I can't remember, we went to a number of places with Prabhupada, and I can't remember exactly the timeline, but somewhere along the way we ended up in Rishikesh, and where Prabhupada went to for some healing, just to be in the healing atmosphere, and within a few days, I think it was a few days, it might have been a week, but I don't know, anyhow, within a short space of time, Srila Prabhupada suddenly said, let's go back to Vrindavan, because there were these terrible, terrible storms in Rishikesh one night, and like really, really heavy lightning and thunder and rains, and Srila Prabhupada felt it was an omen, and that he should immediately return to Vrindavan. So I think it was at that point that he came back to Vrindavan. He didn't leave Vrindavan again after that time. There was some ups and downs with his health. And just on a little bit of a lighter note, while in Vrindavan serving Srila Prabhupada, I also got the opportunity to do some cooking for him, and just like recalling a few little stories, which just two come to mind at the moment. Although I know there's a lot more, but I just can't think that at the moment. A story I guess I've told a number of times about my son Aniruddha. Prabhupada used to, I was doing the transcribing, but I also started cooking for Srila Prabhupada at a few different times when we were traveling with him. So I used to let my son bring in some of the prasadam to Srila Prabhupada, a few things happened around that. A very light thing that happened was one day Aniruddha brought some prasadam in, and Srila Prabhupada said to him, "So Aniruddha, you are going to be a cook or a Sanskrit scholar?" And Aniruddha said, "I'm going to be a cowherd's boy." And Srila Prabhupada said, "Oh, you do not want to be Sanskrit scholar? Your father is a very good Sanskrit scholar." And Aniruddha said, "No, Srila Prabhupada, I'm going to be a cowherd's boy." Srila Prabhupada laughed and laughed. So this is just a little taste of his sense of humor and, some interactions with his devotees, how he interacted in different ways. And another time, when I was cooking for him here, the restaurant here in the ISKCON guest house had just opened up. So Srila Prabhupada, I would bring him the plate of prasadam that I cooked. And Srila Prabhupada also wanted to taste the prasadam that they were making in ISKCON guest house. So he asked for that plate too. So he'd take little tastes of that prasadam. And he used to compare things sometimes. And I just remember one time, he said to me, "Today your shukta is better than theirs, but their kheer is better than yours." So, this is again how his interactions, and it was all very light and amusing. And one other thing that happened, actually it wasn't in Vrindavan, but also around cooking, that when I first started cooking for Prabhupada in Hyderabad, Hari Suri was serving him, he was a personal servant, and he used to tell me not to let Aniruddha into the kitchen because his hands were dirty, but I always let my son into the kitchen. It's very bad. So he used to yell sometimes, and one day, not my son, Hari Suri used to yell sometimes. So one day he got really angry at me and was like yelling pretty loudly, "I told you shouldn't let Aniruddha into the kitchen. His hands are dirty and he's touching the prasadam, and then you bring it into Prabhupada." And anyhow, Prabhupada heard from next door. Srila Prabhupada heard Hari Suri yelling. So he came in. I think he said, "What is the difficulty?" That book that Srila Kirti wrote? By that name, what is the difficulty? I think that's what Srila Prabhupada said. So Hari Suri, was pretty kind of animated there. And he was telling Prabhupada, "I told her she shouldn't let Aniruddha into the kitchen." And so Srila Prabhupada said to Hari Suri, "Come into my room, we will talk about this." So they were in the room for a few minutes, and then Srila Prabhupada called me into the room, and he said, the first thing he said is, "I have told Hari Suri that if he has any complaints or anything that he wants to say to you, he shouldn't speak to you directly. The proper thing is to either go to the husband or the father of the wife." So I told him that he should either come to me or he should go to Pradyumna if he has any complaints about you. And that made me feel great right away, because Srila Prabhupada was saying, "I am your father," And then he said to me, "Is it all right if Aniruddha, when he wants some prasadam, if he can just come to the door of the kitchen, tell him he can't enter the kitchen, just come to the door of the kitchen and you can bring some prasadam out to him." So I said, "Yes, Srila Prabhupada." So basically in this way, he satisfied everybody. Parasuri was satisfied that Aniruddha wasn't going to come into the kitchen with his dirty hands, because he used to play with the calves. So, and I was satisfied because Srila Prabhupada called himself my father, and Aniruddha was satisfied because he was still going to get his prasadam. So anyhow, this was Srila Prabhupada, he was amazing. And anyhow, that's a few little stories, and maybe, I don't know if there's a question. Yeah, is there any questions about anything to any of us? Yes.
He's as good as God. He's as good as Krishna, but he's not Krishna. He's Krishna's confidential servant. And that is, again, that's no ordinary thing. It's a very extraordinary thing. So he's as good, for the disciple or for the followers, Prabhupada is as good as God, as good as Krishna. So his words are equal to Krishna's words. They have the same potency because Krishna has empowered him. So in that sense, he's Shakshad Hari, as good as God. But he's the servant of God.
Somewhere I heard it, Prabhupada was criticizing many of them that they call themselves God. So Prabhupada said that they are calling them God, they are rascals, and I will beat them on their face. So Prabhupada speaks like that. And now we see that we are calling Prabhupada as a God or this one. So I feel so much a difference in that one, what Prabhupada used to speak, that nobody should be as a God. God is on the topmost level. He is the supreme personality of God. And we are just his servant. So Prabhupada always manage that we are his servant. So we should be in that attitude, that we should be serving that in that attitude, we should accept. Everyone, even Prabhupada said, even Mahaprabhu came as a bhakta avatar. We have to accept him as the bhakta avatar. But so we are changing. Prabhupada said, my only qualification is that I cannot change anything. I did as it is. So if you follow Prabhupada as it is, what he has given us, he said, do not add or do not subtract from them. And so many things we see that we are so much things we are adding, we are subtracting. And during those times, whatever the Kirtan was going, always Hare Krishna Kirtan was going. Prabhupada. And other day, this Subhagati was in class and he wrote some words of Prabhupada. And when all the devotees were chanting Jai, 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 they are not chanting anything else. But now we see that how the differences are there, and if anything happens or we chant differently, we don't follow Prabhupada what he has given us. So how the things are being changing, and musically we are doing those things, and we are not following Prabhupada, and we are glorifying Prabhupada for everything. So this thing I am not in our mind what we should do.
That's again, Aditi was just pointing. Maybe you could give Aditi the mic, and then why don't you say? You say
well,
first.
I'm just saying, every morning we say Shakshad Hari Shastri, the spiritual master, being Krishna's representative, he's as good as Krishna. We're not saying Prabhupada is God. We're saying Prabhupada is Krishna's intimate representative.
Yeah,
and this is not fabrication. I think Vishwanath Chakravarti, who wrote this prayer? Vishwanath Chakravarti. So,
the Prabhu is accepting that and asking the question that how do we deal with whimsical changes and additions and subtractions to the process that not just Srila Prabhupada is Shakshad Hari Trina Samasta Shastra Uktastatava Vyata Eva Sadbi, that Shastra and Sadhu confirm everything that Srila Prabhupada has said and given is confirmed by Krishna. So when we change, then it is either through misunderstanding, immaturity, ignorance, and it has to be rectified. It can't be allowed to go on. It has to be rectified. That is all of our duty. That's why so many devotees like yourself are encouraging devotees to hear from Prabhupada, to read Prabhupada's books. And Prabhupada's books, as he gave them. Everything Prabhupada has given is Krishna consciousness as it is, eternally. That's the meaning of parampara. So it's our duty, this generation, to preserve that parampara. So we have to speak up. We have to speak up. It's our duty to help each other, not just say, oh, it's okay. We don't want to be a permissive society. Hey, look at what happened to the permissive society in the United States. The whole world has been, do what you want, etc., etc. It didn't work. We need guidance. We need firm and enlightened guidance, and that's what Srila Prabhupada's giving us. Is an extraordinary opportunity. We should take it very deeply, seriously, and
Were you cooking for Prabhupada? Was it spicy? What kind of things did he like? Did he cook some spicy things, or was it generally mild? Did you cook?
He didn't. When I was cooking for him, I think in general, he didn't eat too spicy. But I do recall that making, like lunch prasadam for him. He usually liked a little bit of green chili in the sabjis or the dal, but not a lot. He definitely didn't want it too spicy. He also didn't want too much ghee. A little ghee, not too much ghee in the preparations. And when I was cooking, a breakfast was practically all fruits, all different, big plate of all different kind of fruits, nicely, a nice spread. Yeah, sandash. And there was usually a little thing of ginger root and lemon. Chickpeas, that's right, chickpeas that had been soaked. So that's what he used to eat for breakfast. And lunch, it was the usual kind of rice, dal, chapatis, and sabjis, and often kheer, at the end. And Bengali, a lot of kind of Bengali kind of spicing and preparations. He likes shukta a lot.
Did you always eat the same meals?
Definitely not, because, it depended on his health. A lot of the time he didn't feel so good, so he wouldn't eat as much. And if he really liked it, he'd eat more. If he felt all right and he really liked the what he was eating, then, he might actually finish the whole plate. A lot of the time he left over some, for devotees to take some remnants. But occasionally he didn't even leave anything over because he really liked the prasadam. So it just depended, but I never saw Srila Prabhupada overeat. I've seen some pictures of Srila Prabhupada in front of a number of big platters of kind of endless prasadam, but I think he probably just took little tastes. He didn't overeat for sure.
Well, once in a while, I think when
This comes out.
once in a while when this fisherman was here, and he would have a craving for some particular food. Sometimes it seemed like people were concerned because at that point he might be too much, and it might be cooked in mustard oil. Is that mustard oil rather than ghee? And yet he loved their cooking also. And I remember once in 1974, Baba was giving class, and Fisherman was sitting there in front on the floor with the women. And he was kind of teasing about his sister and how she couldn't. I think he said, "Oh, she is so fat." I think that's what he said. And he was kind of teasing, and she couldn't understand. But she looked just like Prabhupada, and she was very, very sweet. And that's that time in 1974, she stayed at an ashram over there on the Paragon Path, and I also stayed there. And just seeing what her pastimes in the morning, and her taking bath, her singing, she was very, very sweet and wonderful. And she loved Prabhupada. She loved Prabhupada just so much, and she always wanted to be there with him. And he would sometimes make fun, but he loved her also.
A lot of the devotees learned how to cook from Pishima as well. Learn preparations from Pishima. I know when I was cooking for Prabhupada, she was around in Mayapur and she was teaching me things, and sometimes she made things and I wrote down how to do it. Unfortunately, now I can't understand my notes.
That period, the period in 1974, Palika was chosen to cook for Prabhupada.
Yeah.
And she's actually a very simple cook. Not, and yet Prabhupada seemed very pleased with Palika's cooking.
I've also heard that Prabhupada, sometimes Srila Prabhupada's mama was so spicy, like chili, not Krishna. And devotees would try it. It was just so hot they couldn't handle it. But as far as prasadam, there's that story where Prabhupada was being served kachoris. I think Himavati was making them for him. And he got up to 14. And she said, well, Prabhupada, how many kachoris can you eat? And Prabhupada replied, more than you can make. So it all depended on, Prabhupada's appetite, what he was doing.
Right. I think also when I was started cooking for him, which was 1976-77, he was not in great health most of that time. So probably earlier on he was eating differently than he was eating then.
I know about Prabhupada's humor again. When he was leaving England, he left from Heathrow, so he had to take the lift from the ground floor to the departure floor. So the devotees that had come to see him off, we were all gathered in front of the elevator as Prabhupada was wheeled into the elevator facing us. And the doors were shutting and we were all gazing at Srila Prabhupada. And then as soon as the door shut, we ran up the stairs to the first floor. And as the doors opened, we were all there. And Prabhupada smiled. So he hadn't lost his sense of humor. He was all there. It was just the body that was different.
One last question, anybody have? No. Yes?
You were talking about some changes at the modern ISKCON now with Prabhupada's time. Could you give an example of some changes that we can improve this generation? Small example.
I think the biggest change since Prabhupada departed physically is that when Prabhupada was with us physically, everyone's focus was on what Srila Prabhupada did and said and instructed. He was the supreme authority. That changed when Prabhupada physically departed. And we lost a lot from that change. If we can get back to focusing on Srila Prabhupada exclusively, we'll all benefit. That's the biggest change.
Okay, so I think we'll stop there because it's 6:45 now. So thank you for coming. Hare Krishna.